Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So we'll go ahead and get started here for this afternoon session. So first of all, I just wanted to highlight, so I am not Mr. Spurgeon that's showing up here. So he's the ACM Cyber Deputy. I'm Colonel John Transu. I am the Cyber Seated Director. I was the ACM Cyber till about 6 weeks ago when Colonel Steve Myko is actually now in as the ACM Cyber. He came in from USERA. Wasn't able to be here this morning as he's actually closing on his house today. And so he'll be here this afternoon and then the rest of the week. So make sure to be able to see Steve Myko, M-I-K-O, as you see him in here. So at the Cyber Seated, we oversee all of the Army capability managers. And this session here, you have the ACM Cyber brief of how we are delivering our decision dominance through our cyberspace. And then we're going to be taking a short cutoff so they can finish up with the recording and then going right into the ACM EW with Colonel Dan Holland from starting right around 12:30. So we'll be doing the presentation and then having some questions and answers here going into the ACM EW. And then after that question and answer time, I know a lot of times individuals want to kind of meet one-on-one or whatnot, so we can do that at the end, moving into the session or moving out into the hallway. But go ahead and get started with the ACM Cyber brief. So the first item I want to highlight is on the cyberspace capabilities. We do follow part of the JSID's documents, but we need to be doing what's called the Information Technology Box, the IT box, where in the cyberspace, both on the technology development and the operational capabilities based off of the adversary threat, we need our capabilities much faster than a normal acquisition model would allow. And so that's what we're showing here is the development operational cycle, that DevSecOps, where we are doing our evolutionary capability, working with the agile method with our different program managers, doing the scrums, the sprints of developing our capabilities within the 6-month time periods. So we really need to be working with our operational forces, and that's very useful. That we'll be talking throughout the brief here at Fort Gordon, now where you have the Army Cyber Headquarters, Cyber Protection Brigade, several of the battalions from the offensive cyber side, and now also the 915th Cyber Warfare Battalion, the CWB, is now also here at Fort Gordon. And so as we're able to have our requirements owners from the Army Capability Managers, the ACM, working with our operational forces to develop the cyber needs forms, and then work on what the requirements are for the Army official requirements, and then working with our program managers. And in a second, I will talk about which specific program managers that we work with the cyber side, all to get our capabilities into the field faster. And with the IT box, we don't use the objective threshold as much, but we use the initial minimum value, the IMVs, of providing the initial capability using constant feedback from the operational force to iterate, develop off of that capability, and going and very as fast as we can go, as far as we can go, because in that window we don't necessarily know how fast our industry partners can take us. And so that's it's different from what a normal hardware capability will be using. And so that's how we do it in the ACM Cyber, and it's becoming much more prevalent. We're using it more from the Cyber Center of Excellence. If you go to the ACM Network and Services, and General Morrison talked this morning about the unified network, the unified platform. So we're starting to use for our unified network operations some of the IT box capabilities that we'll be discussing here also. So for the actual Army Capability Manager, our cyber portfolio, we have 4 main portfolios within that ACM Cyber manages, and all different program managers that we'll discuss here. Within the ACM Cyber portfolio, you have the defensive cyber operations capabilities. What you're seeing at the top of the slide, and we'll go into more detail, more blown up slide later on, so you don't necessarily need to take the pictures of these, but you can. Also, all of these slides are up on the AFCEA website, so you can get them from there also. But with their portfolios that we have, it's the defensive cyber operations, the offensive cyber operations, the persistent cyber training environment, which is being built for the joint forces, right now primarily the cyber mission force, and then the cyber situational understanding for not the cyber mission force, but the combatant commander at the brigade combat team level, the division level. As we were talking this morning, the commander needs to know what's happening in the cyber realm and how can they actually know what's occurring within the cyber realm and how it is impacting their operations. What you're seeing here in the purple is all of our requirements at that top level are actually joint approved. I know some of the services are doing the cyber needs forms and going straight up. We're doing the actual program of records in the IT box, and all of our overarching documents are now JDAL approved, JROC approved. So that's one key item from ours. Also, what you see down below, for instance, the defensive cyber operations goes from number 1 through number 11. And so those requirements, called the requirement definition packages, the RDPs, are approved at the Army level. And so all of those requirements have now been approved and working through the program managers for providing the capabilities within that broad spectrum. And I'll talk about some of those specific capabilities when I get to the defensive cyber operations slide also. On the offensive cyber operations slide, there's two purple diamonds there. One of the key items I want to talk about there is that our capabilities for the Army are also being working on behalf of U.S. Cyber Command. And so they are becoming the joint solution for the Joint Common Warfighting Architecture, the JICWA. So that's been both the requirement is what the JCAP was based off of, and then now also the material solution is being built by our PM EWNC for the joint the material solution. Because there are two different things where you have the requirement and then you have the material solution that's being worked on. So for the joint perspective, they assumed our requirement and then also the material solution there. On the persistent cyber training environment, that's the another component of the JICWA, the Joint Common Warfighting Architecture. That's the training platform. And so Army has been building this on behalf of the U.S. Cyber Command and our joint formations. And then as mentioned, cyber situational understanding is for our actual tactical warfighter of understanding what's happening in the cyber domain, not necessarily the cyber mission force. Also on these capabilities, where the Army is going in the future is working on our service retained formations. So a lot of the cyber portfolio is built for the cyber mission force, thinking the cyber protection teams, the cyber combat mission teams, underneath the Cyber Protection Brigade, the 780th Brigade. But where the Army is going now is building out the Multi-Domain Task Force, the MDTF, and then now also the Multi-Domain Effects Battalion, the MDEB, formerly known as of, 3 weeks ago, Dan, something like that, as the I2Qs. So those who know of the I2Qs, they have now changed their name, like the Army likes to do, to the MDEB, the Multi-Domain Expeditionary Battalion. And so a lot of our capabilities are also not just being built for the cyber mission force, but for the MDEB, and then also for the 915th Cyber Warfare Battalion, which takes our cyber capabilities to the tactical edge, not just for our strategic effects like General Morrison and General Stanton were talking about this morning, but how we provide that strategic capability with the tactical edge. So our capabilities, off of this slide, I'll discuss it real quick. The defensive cyber operations, the PM that we work with at is PM DCO, which is Colonel Mark Taylor out at Fort Belvoir. The offensive cyber operations is PM Electronic Warfare and Cyber, PM EWNC. Shares the same PM with our electronic warfare that Colonel Holland will be talking about, and that's up at Aberdeen. The persistent cyber training environment is Colonel Corey Hemingway at PEO STRI, or I guess they've changed their name to the PEO formerly known as STRI. And cyber situational understanding is with PM Mission Command Cyber, also at Aberdeen, where we share our capabilities with the command post computing environment, the common operational environment, so all of our capabilities share that same program manager. So if you have from our industry partners interested in having the material solution that fits in one of those portfolios, definitely can talk with myself, my team. Those are the program managers that we would actually work with. Okay, so now we'll go into the discussion of some of the capabilities. So this first one is the cyberspace situational understanding. And as General Stanton was mentioning this morning, a key piece that the Army has been working on for several years was the cyber operational picture, the COP. And in this case, that was more for the cyber mission force. And in this case, it's similar to what General Stanton was highlighting, was as the maneuver commander, as you're trying to do the information advantage, information dominance, our cyber support for our military decision makers, what is actually happening in the cyberspace, and how is that actually affecting the operational impact for the maneuver commander? And so the cyber situational understanding is actually the first capability that is being built organically on the command post computing environment, the CPCE, as an overlay of what is happening within the cyberspace. So the command post computing environment, I won't get into a lot of the discussion here. That's being built by the Mission Command CDID, but our capabilities, we work obviously very closely with Mission Command, with their common operational environment, where the command post computing environment, the common operational environment, is being put on the tactical server infrastructure from ACM Network and Services, and it's being defended by the tactical DCO infrastructure that I'll talk about shortly when I get to the DCO portion. And we have the common operational picture for the cyber situational understanding. We are not, with CyberSU, putting any sensors out. What we are doing is taking the existing data that exists within the common operational environment to then work the analytical capabilities on that to then provide the picture. For instance, in the blue network, we have our normal network topology that the S6 could be using. All of that, their sensor data that's coming in. From the electromagnetic spectrum, we take that information from the EWPMT that Colonel Holland will probably be talking about shortly, briefly. But we take that information of what's happening as that goes into the common operational environment and then pull that into our analytic capability at the tactical edge to understand what is actually happening. So you have a lot of the data there that we need to be able to sort through to see what's happening. At the bottom, you see the social layer, and so some of the key pieces in the future iterations is understanding what's actually happening in the social layer that is affecting the commander's environment. What's happening in the Facebook, the Twitter sphere, the blog sphere of whether it's in the operational environment, say that the brigade or the division is in a European theater, so not necessarily right there, but really anywhere in the world that could be having the social stories that could be impacting that maneuver commander. So you have to run the analytics on there, and then on the right-hand side of the slide, it's showing the actual integrated common operational picture. And so what we need there is, again, not for the cyber mission force, lots of the ones and zeros, but the operational impact. Say if there is an electromagnetic spectrum, whether man-made, natural, friendly, adversary that is taking out a fire system, you want to be able to understand that, hey, you do not have capability of doing a fire mission right now because you're having an impact on our fires network. And so that's easily understood for the commander of what that operational impact is, not necessarily the cyber. As we move to the offensive cyber operations capability, I won't actually spend a ton of time on this slide, but if you're interested in more information at a higher discussion, we can discuss, and again with our PM Electronic Warfare and Cyber team. In general, there's several capabilities that's needed to conduct an offensive cyber operations. You need the infrastructure, the firing platform, the analytic capabilities, and the actual bullets. So we kind of have it split down into the weapons platform and then what we call the counters. And so all of those capabilities are, that we work from our enterprise level to provide an effect for our tactical commanders. And we also, through the Cyber Warfare Battalion, the 915th Cyber Warfare Battalion, we can take our capabilities to the tactical edge. Where the Army's focused on over the next several years is those service retained formations that I mentioned before. The Multi-Domain Effects Battalion, the MDEB underneath the Multi-Domain Task Force, and then the 915th Cyber Warfare Battalion, as we extend our capabilities to the tactical edge, working hand in hand with our electronic warfare teammates as we do the RF-enabled cyber capabilities. And a lot of times at different forms, you might have heard with the CMOS chassis and the TLIS capabilities, the MFU-Air, all of those from the cyber perspective are where we could be providing our effects delivery. What I want is the transmission path. And so that's what we are really working on in the cyber, still continuing our support for the Cyber Mission Force, obviously, but as we look ahead, how we can be affecting that at the tactical layer. On the defensive cyber operations capability, dovetails directly into what General Morris and General Stanton were talking about this morning, where you need to transmit the data, you need to collect the data, you need to analyze the data, and you need to secure the data. So from the active network and services perspective, that's building out the unified network that they were discussing, along with the network, in support of the network cross-functional team. The defensive cyber operations is really focused on the maneuvering of formations that are defending that data. This portfolio is not necessarily working on the cyber security of the always-on defense, the area defense, but primarily the cyber protection teams and what they need to secure that data. First, I'll take a look at the internal organizations. We support primarily Army Cyber Command and their down trace. Along with that is the Cyber Protection Brigade is a key organization, along with the National Guard and the Reserve cyber protection teams that are activating. The capabilities within this portfolio also support all of them. Underneath our cyber, you have NETCOM and the regional cyber centers, where the capabilities also support the RCC mission for defending the networks. And then the Cyber Warfare Battalion does have a defensive element to their formation. And so we're kind of treating them in this area similar to a cyber protection team. Same as the Multi-Domain Effects Battalion, the MDEB underneath the Multi-Domain Task Force. They have what could be considered a cyber protection team doing their mission for the MDTF and there within the theater. So when we look at the background of the slide, you have our blue network, the gray network, the red network. The blue network, in this case, it is primarily the DoD Information Network Army, our Army network that we're defending. But in our case, it isn't just the Army network. Our teams support multiple COCOMs. So you're supporting UCOM, PACOM, whatever combatant command that you want to think of, the teams directly support them. So that would be our blue network, along with our mission partner environment, where we have to defend our mission partners. So that would all be considered the blue space. Our gray space is the internet, or what's other areas, and then of course the adversary is where they are attacking us that we're trying to defend from. And no slide would be complete without having our hackers with the black hoodie on, so that's how we know they're the bad guys. So what we're really looking at in the cyberspace, we're doing normal Army things, but within the cyber domain. So you need to have a weapons platform similar to an Abrams tank or a Stryker vehicle in Apache. And in the cyber domain, we have 3 weapons platforms. In the defensive cyber domain, I mean. We have 3 primary weapons platforms, which is the tactical DCO infrastructure that defends the brigades, the garrison DCO platform that's at the installation level where our cyber protection teams can maneuver through the network without actually having to deploy in order to defend the installations. And then you have the small deployable kit, the letter Charlie on there, the DDS kit, which is now the backpack capable. And this is a good example of the development cycle, where at first when we were looking at it, it was two pallets that you would need to deploy forward, normally taking some air. Now it's a backpack capable system that you can put in the overhead compartment and fly with you. And so that's kind of an example of how fast we need to move here based off of our adversary, our technology, and what we're able to actually deliver. Then, so that's the hardware piece, kind of the weapons platform. And then you have the software that's being put on. So you have the defensive cyber operations tools, the forensics and malware capability, analysis capability, threat emulation, all normal things that one would think of how you're defending the network with the threat emulation. How is the adversary? What is the TTPs they use to actually defend our network? I could talk a lot more about the defensive cyber capabilities. If you have any specific questions later, we can discuss those also. But then we also have the persistent cyber training environment, the PCTE. And so this is the capability that is being built as the training ranges for the cyber mission force underneath PEO STRI. This is a really good example of the agile method. U.S. Cybercom General Nakasone normally discusses PCTE when he's discussing the Scrum, our agile development. Do a Google search PCTE General Nakasone, and you'll see some of his comments on it. This is even during COVID, this is a great example of the flexibility that they were able to do some of the key U.S. Cybercom events during the COVID off of this PCTE platform. If you think, at least from the Army and the other capabilities, you can think of it as the rifle range, the small squad tactics range, all the way up to the combat training centers, our CTCs, out at Fort Irwin or in Germany. There wasn't this type of training range for the cyber mission force and how it was being utilized. So this is what it's being used for. You could think of the PCTE kind of as the Netflix or that type of library type capability of where the program manager is developing the backbone, the actual system itself, where then the services, the Cyber Protection Brigade, the 780th, Navy, the Air Force, are the ones that are providing the content. And then it's a library type content where you can check it in, check it out. You can check out some of the capabilities and then edit it, modify it based off of what you're needing. So it's really making the training, developing the training and understanding, analyzing the training much faster than it had been previously. And it's a very good program that's out there. So just real quick before we get to questions, these are a couple of the challenges that ACM Cyber has listed for what they're looking for. Some mentioned this morning by General Stanton, the natural language processing, how you can take that unstructured, that text-based data, and then being able to analyze it and extract the information from it. And then one of the key items as we look at the security orchestration, automated response, the SOAR capabilities for down in the bottom left, lowering the cognitive loads, both on the commanders and staff, and in that case for our network defenders, but then also really for all of the Army members. How can we automate a lot of those processes? Our dependency mapping modeling, also for the cyber situational understanding for how to better understand the mission dependencies and what is happening within the cyber domain of how that affects the missions. And then also our common data fabric with that cross-domain solutions of how we go from our NIPR, our SIPR, our top secret, of crossing, and our mission partner environments as we fight at that secret level with our mission partners, and how we can reduce the number and the complexity of our interfaces. So lots of key things that we're working from the defensive cyber side, offensive cyber piece, building out the common operational picture and building a training range for our formations. And so with that, I have about 5 minutes here for questions, and then we'll be moving into the ACM piece. Oh, we have a microphone also, one for the recording and others in the room.
Hey, thank you for taking my question. The question is in reference to PC, the PC persistent cyber training environment and SEMA teams. Are SEMA teams able to leverage or take advantage of that environment to facilitate their training?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you for the question. So the question was if our SEMA teams are able to take part, utilize the persistent cyber training environment. So yes and no. So officially it is a joint program, U.S. Cybercom program, where the parameters of the program or for this phase one, I mentioned earlier that we do it in IT boxes, the 4-year increments. This first implementation is for the collective training of the cyber mission force. Technically, yes, they're able to use it, and we already have a lot of SEMA teams that are utilizing it, but it is not being built explicitly for them. What some SEMA teams are able to do is work with Army Cyber training teams, because the allocation with this being a joint program for the Army comes from Army Cyber. And so if it isn't being utilized in a certain time frame, you might be able to get some of the training. For instance, 915th Cyber Warfare Battalion, the MDEB, Multi-Domain Effects Battalion, although they are not considered part of the cyber mission force, they all have accounts and are utilizing it for the training. The next iteration that we're working on now is building out individual training, specifically for the institutions, for the, in our case, the Army's cyber schoolhouse, and then same thing for the Navy and the other areas. As I mentioned earlier, this first range, as going for like a rifle range, small squad, CTC, what they had really noticed as a capability gap was the collective training, and so that's what it's being designed for, or that's what it was designed for. But obviously, in order to get to collective training, you need to be able to do individual training, and so that's what the next phase officially is being used for. But that has different requirements. Collective training, it's really a free range that was being built. For individual training, you also need your learning management system. And so that's kind of what the program managers with some of the partners would be working on. Did that answer the question? Very good. Yes, sir. Yes. So the question was, when mentioning the learning management system, if I was talking about kind of a scoring system along with the range. So yes, it kind of depends on how we would build it. All of the institutional training right now already has kind of their organic systems that they conduct their individual training on. So really it comes into, are we going to be doing a platform as a service, or is the PM actually going to build out the learning management system as part of the platform, or is it just going to host the existing training that's already on that system?
No, that sounds great. So one thing I wanted to understand is, as you move forward and you have very specific requirements, so a lot of this is determined upon your requirements, the builds, the firmware, what you actually want to host, will then determine what actions you want to get out of it. So as you start to spin up the actual images, you interact with them, and then you say, I want to then go ahead and see these actions. That will determine what you want to get as a user logging in, and then that will perform scenarios. So then
Roger.
If you want to see scenario-based actions after the fact, that now gets into the learning management system. So now the learning management system almost comes secondary to then actually building the tech.
Absolutely. And I do want to highlight, at least with the persistent cyber training environment, with this being the joint program, we do that. The governance for this is slightly different from some of the Army ones, where we have the persistent cyber training environment governance structure being co-chaired by Army and U.S. Cybercom, and those type of discussions of how do we actually want to do it, what is the operational need, get discussed there at that governance structure, and then we get the marching orders pretty much from U.S. Cyber Command. And pending time, so I'll be here for any personal questions after the Army Capability Manager electronic warfare goes. So yeah, look forward to if there's any individual questions that we want. But I believe we're going to take a short 30-second break or so where we can stop the recording, then start the new one and reset for Colonel Dan Holland.